Grand Rising. So today we're going to be decoding The Wizard of Oz, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, the first book in the series by L. Frank Baum, I guess. But before we even get into that, I wanted to highlight a few um, like character points that I've discovered or that I'm thinking kind of linked together because with stories and books like this, they all have alternative meanings. There are things underneath the meanings. So the first thing, I didn't even know this until yesterday when I first started this, and I was like, you know what, I want to record this experience. So there's actually a saint named Dorothy. And so I guess this is Dorothy of Cesare, like the Borgia clan. And basically what happened to Saint Dorothy is that she's a martyr, and she passed or was executed in these persecutions. So now let's look up what these persecutions were. Yes, I'm using Wikipedia. Okay, So the Great Persecution was the last and most severe persecutions of Christians in Roman Empire. Okay, in 303, the emperors, I don't know what some of these words is. Diocletian, Maximian, Galerius, and Constantius issued a series of edicts rescinding Christians' legal rights and demanding that they comply with traditional religious practices. So basically, they were like trying to get rid of Christianity, it seems like, and they were like really persecuting them. So Saint Dorothy refused to denounce Christ and Jesus and Christianity, and was executed for that. So I think that that's interesting that the story's name is, the main character's name is Dorothy. And so there's something to do with martyrdom in this story. There's something to do with persecution in this story. So that's something that I really, really, really wanted to highlight. And we could like this diagnosis is going to take a long time because there's so much that I really want to get into. Um, but so basically, there was some persecutions going on, and now Dorothy is a Catholic saint. Okay, but most of when I was doing my research previously, most stuff about her or information about her, like a lot of other deified beings from the past, is like legend. So we have to, take not necessarily take things with a grain of salt, but understand where they're coming from the point of where we are. You know what I mean? So she was brought before the perfect thing. She was tried and tortured and sentenced to being, executed. It's just very interesting because what I also discovered was that her parents were executed and persecuted before her. So it was like before she even had this experience, they had it as well. So that's interesting. Another thing that's interesting is M, because her aunt's name is Aunt M, and something that's similar from what I've noticed, a lot of these things are relatively similar to the Hunger Games, like Aunt M, and her Gail is the last name of Dorothy. Her I don't know if Dorothy's last name is Gail, but I know that her aunt Aunt M Gail and Henry Gale. So there's Gail means something here too. So let's just look up Gail meaning as well. So we're gonna look up M. And what's interesting here is that M is a unit of measuring the width of printed matter. Okay, it's measuring. It's a measurement, but also it can be abbreviated as electromagnetic, in match, like it's quite interesting. The width of a piece of type that, wait, the width of a piece of type about as wide as it is tall, used to measure a typeset matter. What is it? What is typeset matter? Because these are things that are going to help us to understand what the story is actually saying. Okay, because this is what we need. So, what is typeset matter and why does it matter? Typesetting, excuse me, and why does it matter? So, typesetting, according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is the process of setting material in type of, the process of setting material in type or into a form to be used in printing. So it's something to do with perhaps like copying and things like that. Why does typesetting matter? Okay, typesetting has its own set of rules that must be followed for a professional look. Okay, because Aunt M, in this book, you're going to hear it. Aunt M is an older woman who's a bit more on the gray side. She doesn't smile. She doesn't laugh. She has a professional look. She's like the printout of what, because they even said she used to be pretty and now she's not. Like that's just so interesting to me. So let's see, are there any images we can look at so that we know? So I guess these are examples. So it's just, child, don't get me to lie. I don't know what that means yet. But something that also is very prevalent is wind, because apparently even Kansas derives from Arkansas, or Arkansas, whatever, and it means south wind people. So there is clearly a hidden message in this story. There's absolutely no way of denying that fact. Okay. So what is it? We're gonna find out, because I feel like this is gonna take forever, because there are 14 books in this series. And so you have to know that whenever there's a series that not only stood the test of time, but when there's so many of them, that's not for no reason. You're not just making 14 books for nothing, okay? And yes, they were successful because, that's why we have these movies now, but there's a reason for that success, okay? There's a reason for it. And so we're gonna look into that. So gale, a very strong wind, a burst of sound, especially laughter. Now, if we go to Webster, it's a strong current of air. So let me write this down. Gale, right? Something about a strong wind. But also, let's look up what is electromagnetic, because that seems a little bit more on point, because she would be some sort of wind. So in physics, electromagnetism is an interaction that occurs between particles with electric charge via electromagnetic fields. Now, what does that mean in layman's term? The physical interaction among electric charges, magnetic moments, and electromagnetic fields. Okay. What is the simplest definition? Okay. The electrical and magnetic forces or effects produced by an electric current. Okay, so it's the force produced by an electric current. What does it do? That's a good question. What does it do? But I'm pretty sure National Geographic has their stuff on lock. So we're not going to look at that one, but we'll look over here and our trusty, our lucky friend, Wikipedia. So electromagnetism also plays a crucial role in modern technology. Okay, here we go. Electric energy production, transformation and distribution, light, heat, and sound production and detection, fiber optic and wireless communication sensors. So I still don't really know what that means yet, to be quite honest with you. Oh, what is an example? So it has something to do with radio waves in the wind. That's what we're going to say for right now, because that's a good hint. Something to do with radio waves in the wind. And she's her aunt. She's not her actual mother. This is her aunt. So we could go a little bit more into that, but for now, I really want to also know, what does Henry mean? Because her aunt, I guess we could say the feminine aspect of this series so far, her Henry, her physical aspect, I don't know. This, you see what I'm saying? Like, this is freaking fascinating. Okay, let's keep going. Henry, the old German Hammark, which is from the German, so it means home. Power ruler. So Uncle Henry Gale is home wind, a power ruler wind. But you know what? Is there a Saint Henry? Because that would lead us down. I'm in the rabbit hole. I'm in the rabbit hole. I'm in the rabbit hole. What? There is a Saint Henry. What the F? Okay. So the Saint Henry story. As a German king and Holy Roman Emperor, Henry was a practical man of affairs. Okay. He was energetic in consolidating his rule. He crushed rebellions and feuds. Interesting, because Dorothy was persecuted. So he and was executed by what you could say a rebellion of sorts. And he crushes rebellions. So he crushes the very thing that caused Saint Dorothy to become a saint, is kind of what it seems like. Okay. On all sides, he had to deal with drawn out disputes so as to protect his frontiers. This involved him in a number of battles, especially in the South. There's more. The South. What is up with the South? The South keeps popping up in this series. And now we see the South in Italy. What happened in southern Italy? Or, even more so, what is in southern Italy that this keeps referring to? The South. And it might not just be Italy, but there's something about the South. So we're going to have to really dive into what does the compass mean as well. And muy interesante. Okay, so this involved him in a number of battles, especially in the South in Italy. He also helped Pope Benedict VIII quell disturbances in Rome. So he was a German king. What was Dorothy? Okay, let's keep going. Always, his ultimate purpose was to establish a stable peace in Europe. Wow, isn't that interesting? According to the 11th century custom, Henry took advantage of his position and appointed as bishops men loyal to him. So he was biased. In his case, however, he avoided the pitfalls of this practice and actually fostered the reform of ecclesiastic and monastic life. Okay. He was canonized in 1146. Okay, so I don't know. Ecclesiastic, I think that's what that word is. Let's see. Relating to Christian church, it's the clergy. And this probably means the same type. Oh, relating to monks and nuns. Okay. Interesting, interesting, interesting. Some of these words I've never seen before. Okay, so it is what it is. What it is. What's up? Okay, he's the patron of childless, of dukes, of the handicapped, and the rejected, and those rejected by religious orders. Because Dorothy was rejected by a religious order because she was exiled. So her uncle is the protector of, oh gosh. Okay, so this is the power of the wind. And we can even say the protector of the rejected. Now, aunt and uncle play a role here, but we'll get to that. But clearly, it is clear because they are her guardians, but they did not create her. So that's something as well. I told you this is interesting. Now, Toto. Toto, wizard. Toto meaning. Oh wait, first of all, did I spell Toto right? Is the first question. Toto. Let me just say the whiz because that's faster to write. Okay, so Toto, that is how you spell Toto. So Toto, meaning. Now, if there's a meaning of Toto, I'm gonna be like, because what? A young one, a baby. Toto doesn't have a meaning. Are you serious? It sure does. All right. So Toto is a young one, baby child. Okay. So young. And then Dorothy means gift or gift of God. So gift of God wind, basically, because Gale is the wind. What I also wanted to point out is I don't know why I just didn't type it in. Sometimes I'd be typing it so fast. Kansas, South Wind people, Kansas. Oh, wait a minute. Or Kansas. Okay, hold on. Hold up. Wait. Kansas tribe of the Sioux family? What is that? And they lived along a river. South Wind people. So here we go again with that south wind. What the heck does south wind mean? Okay, let's look them up. A Native American group. Very interesting. What is a Britannica? Okay, let's look this up. I'm not going to go through all of this, but because it has to mean something. They wouldn't just have it there for no reason. So they spoke 3 languages. All right. Let's see if we can like scan through here and see something. Lived in the area around Lake Superior where they gathered and hunted wild rice. Oh, okay. In turn, the Santee forced these 2 groups from Minnesota into now what are known as North and South. Oh my gosh. Okay, so men acquired status for brave deeds in warfare. So we have another tied to whoa. Oh, hold on. I think we found something. Oh, and the West. Oh my gosh, this is crazy because the Wicked Witch of the West, and now they suffered the encroachment of from the West. Okay, okay, but I'm not. I might have to look a little bit more into these people. So we're gonna look a little bit more into this tribe a little bit later. But you can see like there's so many avenues, and we haven't even started the book. Okay. We haven't even started the book. So it's gonna be a lot of like looking through, coming back. So now let's get into chapter 1. So let me pull up, darn it. Okay. Where is don't be looking at all our stuff on here. Oh, perfect. I don't want to rate it. Let's go back to chapter 1. And I found someone on YouTube because this book is public domain. Okay, so it's okay to read it. You know what I'm saying? Don't try to strike me.
Chapter 1 of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. This is a LibriVox recording. Okay, Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Chapter 1. The Cyclone. Dorothy lived in the midst of the...
First of all, it was a cyclone that took her. So let's because I always thought it was a tornado. So let's see if the cyclone. What is a cyclone? A cyclone is a tropical storm system, so it's more wind, characterized by a low pressure center and numerous thunderstorms that approach. Cyclone versus tornado, because I always thought they were the same thing. All right. So why both cyclones and tornadoes are atmospheric vortices, excuse me, they have little in common. Isn't that interesting? Okay. However, cyclones has a diameter and is comprised of dozens of collective storms. Additionally, while tornadoes require a vertical sphere of horizontal winds, tropical cyclones require very low values of tropospheric vertical shears in order to form and grow. These vertical shear values are indicative of horizontal. Okay, I don't really know what that, but it's interesting that it was a cyclone because I always thought it was a tornado. Okay, counterclockwise. Wait a minute. In meteorology, a cyclone is a large air mass that rotates around a strong center of low atmospheric pressure, counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere and clockwise in the southern hemisphere, as viewed above. Cyclones are characterized by inward spiraling winds that rotate about a zone of low pressure. Cyclone myth. Are there any mythologies? Cyclone, Cyclops? Let's sit on that. But there's because why was it a cyclone? They could have used anything, but they used a cyclone. Let's see, cyclone. Let's just say hidden meaning. Let's just give it a go. Apocalyptic event revealing a rare second chance for revelation and renewal. Huh. So a cyclone is a renewal process. Lord, this is insane. Okay, let's get into it. I'm telling you, like, this is fascinating. Okay.
Great Kansas prairies with Uncle Henry, who was a farmer, and Aunt Em, who was the farmer's wife. Their house was small, for the lumber to build it had to be carried by wagon many miles. There were 4 walls, a floor, and a roof, which made one room. And this room contained a rusty-looking cook stove, a cupboard for the dishes, a table, 3 or 4 chairs, and the beds. Uncle Henry and Aunt Em had a big bed in one corner, and Dorothy a little bed in another corner. There was no garret at all, and no cellar, except a small hole dug in the ground called a cyclone cellar, where the family could go in case one of those great whirlwinds arose, mighty enough to crush any building in its path. It was reached by a trapdoor in the middle of the floor, from which a ladder led down into the small dark hole.
Okay, I thought that was interesting because from what I've seen in like movies and things like that, like usually the cyclone or tornado door is outside, so people have to like run to get to it. So I just thought it was interesting that theirs was actually inside of the house. So maybe, I mean, that's definitely more practical, but it's just interesting.
When Dorothy stood in the doorway and looked around, she could see nothing but the great gray prairie on every side. Not a tree nor a house broke the broad sweep of flat country that reached to the edge of the sky in all directions. The sun had baked the plowed land into a gray mass, with little cracks running through it. Even the grass was not green, for the sun had burned the tops of the long blades until they were the same gray color to be seen everywhere. Once the house had been painted, but the sun blistered the paint and the rains washed it away.
Okay,
and
reads
now
a little
the house
slow.
was as
Let's
dull and
speed
gray
it up.
as everything else. When Aunt Em came there to live, she was a young, pretty wife. The sun and wind had changed her too. They had taken the sparkle from her eyes and left them a somber gray. They had taken the red from her cheeks and lips, and they were gray also. She was thin and gaunt and never smiled now. When Dorothy, who was an orphan, first came to her, Aunt Em had been so startled by the child's laughter that she would scream and press her hand upon her heart whenever Dorothy's merry voice reached her ears. And she still looked at the little girl with wonder that she could find anything to laugh at. Uncle Henry never laughed. He worked hard from morning till night and did not know what joy was. He was gray also, from his long beard to his rough boots, and he looked stern and solemn and rarely spoke. It was Toto that made Dorothy laugh and saved her from growing as gray as her other surroundings. Toto was not gray. He was a little black dog with long silky hair and small black eyes that twinkled merrily on either side of his funny wee nose.
So, black dog, to me, the black dog that I can think of is Anubis. But let's just see, because it seems like this has a lot of ties in like Catholicism somehow, and not even just Catholicism, but like there's something there. So let's see, black dog, and I'm not a Catholic. I'm just inquiring. It often, okay, a church grim. What's that? The church grim is the guardian spirit in English and Nordic folklore that oversees the welfare of a particular Christian church. Ah. Wow. And protects the churchyard from those who would profane and commit sacrilege against it. It's often appears as a black dog, but is known to take the form of other animals. In modern times, when black dogs are kept as pets in churches and are attached personages, these are called church grims since they reside on and guard this type of property. So it's usually a large black dog, but still. What? Of an animal? Wait a minute. Is likewise defined as a protective revenant of an animal buried alive in the church foundation. What? I'm not tripping. Animal buried alive in the church foundation. First of all, why? Okay. What? First of all, why are you burying an animal alive? And why would you do that and put it into a church foundation? And then what is the significance of that? Because to me, if there ever was witchcraft, that would be it. That sounds like some witchcraft stuff to me. And I'm not against, I'm just noticing. It's interesting. Oh my gosh. And then we have another thing. Are in the South. There's something with that South. It's also known as the night raven. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. In giant. Okay, let's see. What does the black dog symbolize? Contradictions, stories describing a malevolent or menacing presence, an association of witchcraft, satanic going-ons or afterlife, as Satan himself as a terrifying hellish beast that can burn and even take things out. Wait a minute. What is the black dog theory? Black dog syndrome, also known as BDS, is a phenomenon in pet adoption which black dogs are ignored in favor of light-colored dogs. Here we go with that BS. Black dog folklore. The Yet Hound or Yellhound is a black dog found according to Headless Dog. See, this is just, but there we go. Church grims and hellhounds, spiritual canines in British folklore. Because I have to assume this guy was a Caucasian, so of course he's gonna, reference Caucasian stuff. So it's saying it's a little bit different, but we just have to acknowledge the fact that Toto, the black dog, does have a reference to church. Now, he's a little black dog and he has different characteristics, but it doesn't mean that it's not symbolic. Okay, let's just look at one more thing. Black dog myth. Paranormal black dogs are predominantly featured in British folklore and can either appear as an omen of death, a protective friend, or a fearsome foe in the form of a hellhound. Because I kind of started to think that, did Dorothy pass away in this and she's trying to get back to Earth because she passed? That's what it started to sound like to me, that Dorothy passed away. But let's get into it again and really, really, dive. We're probably not even going to get past chapter 1, but
Toto played all day long, and Dorothy played with him and loved him dearly. Today, however, they were not playing. Okay, Uncle Henry sat up on the doorstep and looked anxiously at the sky, which was even grayer than usual. Dorothy stood in the door with Toto in her arms and looked at the sky too. Aunt Em was washing the dishes.
Oh, here we are.
From the far north, they heard a low wail of the wind, and Uncle Henry and Dorothy could see where the long grass bowed in waves before the coming storm. There now came a sharp whistling in the air from the south, and as they turned their eyes that way, they saw ripples in the grass coming from that direction also.
From
Suddenly,
the
Uncle Henry
south.
stood up. "There's a cyclone coming in," he called to his wife. "I'll go look after the stock." Then he ran toward the sheds where the cows and horses were kept. Aunt Em dropped her work and came to the door. One glance told her of the danger close at hand. "Quick, Dorothy," she screamed. "Run for the cellar." Toto jumped out of Dorothy's arms and hid under the bed, and the girls started to get him. Aunt Em, badly frightened, threw open the trapdoor in the floor and climbed down the ladder into the small dark hole. Dorothy caught Toto at last and started to follow her aunt. When she was halfway across the room, there came a great shriek from the wind, and the house shook so hard that she lost her footing and sat down suddenly upon the floor. Then a strange thing happened. The house whirled around 2 or 3 times and rose slowly through the air. Dorothy felt as if she were going up in a balloon. The north and south winds met where the house stood and made it the exact center of the cyclone. In the middle of a cyclone, the air is generally still, but the great pressure of the wind on every side of the house raised it up higher and higher until it was at the very top of the cyclone. And there it remained and was carried miles and miles away as easily as you could carry a feather. It was very dark, and the wind
as light as a feather. That's that tie again to Anubis, because according to ancient Egyptian or Kemetic knowledge and in ancient sciences, Anubis would weigh the heart, and if it was lighter than a feather, you could proceed into the next realm. And if not, then Enpu, the like hybrid alligator beast, would then eat your heart. So, and devour your soul, basically. So Dorothy was light as a feather. So because of that, she was able to be carried in the wind. This is some crazy stuff, man.
Rolled horribly around her, but Dorothy found she was riding quite easily. After the first few whirls around, and one other time when the house tipped badly, she felt as if she were being rocked gently, like a baby in a cradle. Toto did not like it. He ran around the room, now here, now there, barking loudly, but Dorothy sat quite still on the floor and waited to see what would happen. Once, Toto got too near the open trapdoor and fell in, and at first, the little girl thought she had lost him. But soon she saw one of his ears sticking up through the hole, for the strong pressure of the air was keeping him up so that he could not fall. She crept to the hole, caught Toto by the ear, and dragged him into the room again, afterward closing the trapdoor so that no more accidents could happen. Hour after hour passed away, and slowly Dorothy got over her fright. But she felt quite lonely, and the wind shrieked so loudly all about her that she nearly became deaf. At first, she had wondered if she could be dashed to pieces when the house fell again, but as the hours passed and nothing terrible happened, she stopped worrying and resolved to wait calmly and see what the future would bring. At last, she crawled over the swaying floor to her bed and lay down upon it, and Toto followed and lay down beside her.
So the reason why I said I think she passed away, because they, said passed away, but also because allegedly when people, or entities move to the next space, sometimes they don't even realize that it happened and they don't know, allegedly. So to me, like her not knowing what's going on, but then just like resigning herself to her fate and just like, okay, here we are now. It confirmed to me that, okay, I think this story is about passing. I think she passed. I think now she's in another world. Now, though, why is this so important to us now is the question. And so I started reading the ISIS thesis the other day. And let me tell you, first of all, this book is a little bit confusing, but it does seem like, for whatever reason, this story of what happens after life is very relevant to now. But I haven't, that bridge is still connecting. But clearly, there's a reason why these stories from Kemetic sciences keep coming up in modern culture. It can't just be because it's what happens after. It has to be also what we can use something currently now. But it does to me seem like Dorothy passed.
In spite of the swaying of the house and the wailing of the wind, Dorothy soon closed her eyes and fell fast asleep. End of chapter 1. The Council with the Munchkins. She was awakened by a shock so sudden.
Okay, first of all, what is let's just see if there's any. Munchkin is the native fictitious. They appear. So munchkins are small people, okay? Munchkins meaning a child or a short person. Let's keep going.
Severe that if Dorothy had not been lying on the soft bed, she might have been hurt. As it was, the jar made her catch her breath and wonder what had happened. And Toto put his cold little nose into her face and whined dismally. Dorothy sat up and noticed that the house was not moving, nor was it dark, for the bright sunshine came in at the window, flooding the little room. She sprang from her bed and, with Toto at her heels, ran and opened the door. The little girl gave a cry of amazement and looked about her, her eyes growing bigger and bigger at the wonderful sights she saw. The cyclone had set the house down very gently for a cyclone in the midst of a country of marvelous beauty. There were lovely patches of greensward all about, with stately trees bearing rich and luscious fruits. Banks of gorgeous flowers were on every hand.
Hold on, because stuff like this matters. So Green's word, all about. What is Green's word? Grass-covered grounds. Let's see, because a lot of stuff had something to do with Catholic. So is Green's words in the morning light at sunrise on a cloudless morning, make the Green's words sparkle. Mm. Mm. Okay. Green's word, Catholic priest. What is this? Okay, let's just keep going. But they don't just use whenever a specific type of flower something is mentioned, it's for a reason. So I'm gonna put that down to do a little bit more research later. What is, because he could have said grass if he just wanted to say grass.
And birds with rare and brilliant plumage sang and fluttered in the trees and bushes. A little way off was a small brook, rushing and sparkling along between green banks, and murmuring in a voice very grateful to a little girl who had lived so long on the dry, gray prairies. While she stood looking eagerly at the strange and beautiful sights, she noticed, coming toward her, a group of the queerest people she had ever seen. They were not as big as the grown folk she had always been used to, but neither were they very small. In fact, they seemed about as tall as Dorothy, who was a well-grown child for her age, although they were, so far as looks go, many years older. 3 were men and 1 a woman, and all were oddly dressed. They wore round hats that rose to a small point a foot above their heads, with little bells around the brims that tinkled sweetly as they moved. The hats of the men were blue, the little woman's hat was white, and she wore a white gown that hung in pleats from her shoulders. Over it was...
Okay, and this is something that you're going to see, because I listened to a few chapters already, but blue and white always pop up in the Munchkinland portion. Colors are like in the movie, all of them were different colors, but like in this book, I've noticed colors really, really matter, and they really care to tell you the different colors over and over again.
Little stars that glistened in the sun like diamonds. The men were dressed in blue, of the same shade as their hats, and wore well-polished boots with a deep roll of blue at the tops. The men, Dorothy thought, were about as old as Uncle Henry, for 2 of them had beards. But the little woman was doubtless much older. Her face was covered with wrinkles, her hair was nearly white, and she walked rather stiffly. When these people drew near the house where Dorothy was standing in the doorway, they paused and whispered among themselves as if afraid to come farther. But the little old woman walked up to Dorothy, made a low bow, and said in a sweet voice, "You are welcome, most noble sorceress, to the land of the Munchkins. We are so..."
By the way, this a similar theme, which makes me think maybe this is also about the Anunnaki or something, or something with that, because it's the Wiz basically, or this book seems to be referring to like a cargo cult as well. And cargo cults are basically like when a more advanced civilization interacts with less advanced civilization, sometimes those people, those inhabitants will deify the people that are coming, because they might bring them food, or they might come on a plane, and like if you never seen that before, you might think that that's a god. So they are currently deifying Dorothy because she fell out of the sky and she landed in Oz and she also, as we know, took out one of the wicked witches. Now, that's important because, interesting, but Dorothy has been deified in a sense because now they think she is a sorceress. They think she is a witch. So that's interesting.
Oh, grateful to you for having killed the Wicked Witch of the East and for setting our people free from bondage. Dorothy listened to the speech with wonder. What could the little woman possibly mean by calling her a sorceress and saying she had killed the Wicked Witch of the East? Dorothy was an innocent, harmless little girl who had been carried by a cyclone many miles from home, and she had never killed anything in all her life. But the little woman evidently expected her to answer, so Dorothy said with hesitation, "You are very kind, but there must be some mistake. I have not killed anything." "Your house did anyway," replied the little old woman with a laugh. "And that is the same thing. See?" she continued, pointing.
Who? Your house. Your house did. Because, the house is like a vessel. The house is like a church or like a temple. So her temple killed the witch. Interesting.
To the corner of the house. There are her 2 feet still sticking out from under a block of wood. Dorothy looked and gave a little cry of fright. There indeed, just under the corner of the great beam the house rested on, 2 feet were sticking out, shod in silver shoes with pointed toes. Oh dear, cried Dorothy, clasping her hands together in dismay. "The house must have fallen on her. Whatever shall we do?" "There is nothing to be done," said the little woman calmly. "But who was she?" asked Dorothy. "She was the Wicked Witch of the East, as I said," answered the little woman. "She has held all the Munchkins in bondage for many years, making them slave for her night and day. Now they're all free and are grateful to you for the favor." "Who are the Munchkins?" inquired Dorothy. "They are the people who live in this land of the East, where the Wicked Witch ruled." "Are you a Munchkin?" asked Dorothy. "No, but I am their friend, although I live in the land of the North. When they saw the Witch of the East was dead, the Munchkins sent a swift messenger to me, and I came at once. I am the Witch of the North." "Oh, gracious," cried Dorothy. "Are you a real witch?" "Yes, indeed," answered the little woman. "But I am a good witch, and the people love me. I am not so powerful as the Wicked Witch was who ruled here, or I should have set the people free myself." "But I thought all witches were wicked," said the girl, who was half frightened at facing a real witch. "Oh, no, that is a great mistake. There were only 4 witches in all the land of Oz, and 2 of them, those who live in the North and the South, are good witches. I know this is true, for I am one of them myself, and cannot be mistaken. Those who dwelt in the East and the West were indeed wicked witches, but now that you have killed one of them, there is but one wicked witch in all the land of Oz, the one who lives in the West." "But," said Dorothy with a moment's thought, "Aunt Em has told me that the witches were all dead years and years ago." "Who is Aunt Em?" inquired the little old woman. "She is my aunt who lives in Kansas, where I come from." The Witch of the North seemed to think for a time, with her head bowed and her eyes upon the ground. Then she looked up and said, "I do not know where Kansas is, for I have never heard that country mentioned before. But tell me, is it a civilized country?" "Oh, yes," replied Dorothy. "Then that accounts for it. In the civilized countries, I believe there are no witches left, nor wizards, nor sorceresses, nor magicians. But you see, the land of Oz has never been civilized, for we are cut off from all the rest of the world, and therefore we still have witches and wizards amongst us." "Who are the wizards?" asked Dorothy. "Oz himself is the great wizard," answered the witch, sinking her voice to a whisper. "He is more powerful than all the rest of us together. He lives in the city of Emeralds."
Okay. The city of Emeralds, as in the Emerald Tablets. And that's another thing that's kind of similar to Hunger Games, because they have the capital city. It's always this like great city that's like ruling,
To ask another question, but just then the Munchkins, who had been standing silently by, gave a loud shout and pointed to the corner of the house where the Wicked Witch had been lying. "What is it?" asked the little old woman, and looked and began to laugh. The feet of the dead witch had disappeared entirely, and nothing was left but the silver shoes. "She was so old," explained the Witch of the North, "that she dried up quickly in the sun. That is the end of her, but the silver shoes are yours, and you shall have them to wear."
She dried up quickly in the sun? Is that referring to radiation? And I don't know what shoes mean yet, but I know that shoes have a very, very particular meaning when it comes to the like esoteric world, and silver shoes, not just shoes, silver shoes.
She reached down and picked up the shoes, and after shaking the dust out of them, handed them to Dorothy. "The Witch of the East was proud of those silver shoes," said one of the Munchkins, "and there is some charm connected with them, but what it is, we never knew." Dorothy carried the shoes into the house and placed them on the table. Then she came out again to the Munchkins and said, "I am anxious to get back to my aunt and uncle, for I am sure they will worry about me. Can you help me find my way?" The Munchkins and the witch first looked at one another, and then at Dorothy, and then shook their heads. "At the east, not far from here," said one, "there is a great desert, and no one could live to cross it." It is the same at the south, said another, for I have been there and seen it. The south is the country of the Quadlings. I am told, said the third man, that it is the same at the west, and that country where the Winkies live is ruled by the wicked witch of the west, who would make you her slave if you passed her way. The north is my home, said the old lady, and at its edge is the same great desert that surrounds this land of Oz. I'm afraid, my dear, you will have to live with us. Dorothy began to sob at this, for she felt lonely among all these strange people. Her tears seemed to grieve the kind-hearted Munchkins, for they immediately took out their handkerchiefs and began to weep also. As for the little old woman, she took off her cap and balanced the point on the end of her nose while...
Okay, listen to this. Let me unslow it down so you can hear this. I mean, unspeak.
She counted 1, 2,
let's
weep off this, for she felt lonely among all these strange people. Her tears seemed to grieve the kind-hearted Munchkins, for they immediately took out their handkerchiefs and began to weep also. As for the little old woman, she took off her cap and balanced the point on the end of her nose while she counted 1, 2, 3 in a solemn voice. At once the cap changed to a slate on which was written in big white chalk marks, "Let Dorothy go to the City of Emeralds."
Isn't that crazy?
The little old woman took the slate from her nose and, having read the words on it, asked, "Is your name Dorothy, my dear?" "Yes," answered the child, looking up and drying her tears. "Then you must go to the City of Emeralds. Perhaps Oz will help you." "Where is the city?" asked Dorothy. "It is exactly in the center of the country and is ruled by Oz, the great wizard I told you of." "Is he a good man?" inquired the girl anxiously. "He is a good wizard. Whether he is a man or not, I cannot tell you, for I have never seen him." "How can I get there?" asked Dorothy. "You must walk. It is a long journey through a country that is sometimes pleasant and sometimes dark and terrible. However, I will use all the magic arts I know of to keep you from harm." "Won't you go with me?" pleaded the girl, who had begun to look upon the little old woman as her only friend. "No, I cannot do that," she replied, "but I will give you my kiss, and no one will dare injure a person who has been kissed by the Witch of the North." She came close to Dorothy and kissed her gently on the forehead. Where her lips touched the girl, they left a round, shining mark, as Dorothy found out soon after. "The road to the City of Emeralds is paved with yellow brick," said the witch, "so you cannot miss it. When you get to Oz, do not be afraid of him, but tell your story and ask him to help you. Goodbye, my dear." The three Munchkins bowed low to her and wished her a pleasant journey, after which they walked away through the trees. The witch gave Dorothy a friendly little nod, whirled around on her left heel 3 times, and straightway disappeared, much to the surprise of little Toto, who barked after her loudly enough when she was gone, because he had been afraid even to growl while she stood by. But Dorothy, knowing her to be a witch, had expected her to disappear in just that way and was not surprised in the least.
Okay. So because they didn't say yellow brick road or for no reason. Okay, so let's look up what does yellow mean in the Catholic Church. Yellow symbolizes light, which in turn is the symbol of the presence of God. It is also symbolic of renewal and hope, especially in the resurrection of Jesus. It is often used as an alternate color for gold. I'm about to say we should do gold, when white is used as a sanctuary color, and sometimes used with white for Easter. Gold symbolizes what is precious and valuable, and so symbolizes majesty, joy, and celebration. Because of its brightness, metallic gold also symbolizes the presence of God. It is more often used with white for holy days and festivals. Okay, let's see what white means too. White symbolizes purity, holiness, and virtue, as well as respect and reverence. White is used for holy days. All right. Let's see in Egypt. Yellow. In ancient Egypt or Kemet, yellow represented that which was eternal and indestructible. So once again, I think this lady passed, okay, and was closely associated with gold and the sun. Gold was thought to be the substance which formed the skin of the gods, and numerous statues of gold were either made of gold or converted with gold or covered with gold leaf. The skin of the god was often painted gold in two-dimensional images. The pharaoh's sarcophagus was made of gold, as he was thought to become a god on his death. So to me, it seems like the yellow brick road represents the path to godhood. That's what I'm getting from this. Isn't that interesting? A gold shin amulet. Oh, let's see. Okay. To protect Ra. Egyptian women were generally depicted with yellow skin, as were Asiatics and Libyans. During the Old Kingdom, powerful officials were often depicted with yellow skin, indicating that they, like women, spent more times indoors and away from sun rays. We don't know to that to be 100% true. Depictions of groups often alternate yellow and brown skin to differentiate the members of group. Young people often were depicted with lighter skin colors. The ancient Egyptians also made yellow pigments such as yellow ochre and ore of iron and muscat and oxide of lead. By the New Kingdom, they were also used in arsenic. Yellow sometimes was interchangeable with white, which meant purity. So to me, this is the story of godhood. And according to the ISIS thesis is upon crossing over to the other side, a human has the capacity and propensity to become a godlike being. So this to me seems like it's like the path in the duat or something similar. It's the path to godhood. There's like I'm more convinced now than I was when I first started this, because I really didn't know what it was. I just knew it was important and that I needed to dive into it.
This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Phil Shinover.
Public domain.
Chapter 3,
okay.
How Dorothy Saved the Scarecrow. When Dorothy was left alone, she began to feel hungry. So she went to the cupboard and cut herself some bread, which she spread with butter. She gave some to Toto, and taking a pail from the shelf, she carried it down to the little brook and filled it with clear, sparkling water. Toto ran over to the trees and began to bark at the bird sitting there. Dorothy went to get him and saw such delicious fruit hanging from the branches that she gathered some of it, finding it just what she wanted to help out her breakfast. Then she went back to the house, and having helped herself and Toto to a good drink of cool, clear water, she set about making ready for the journey to the City of Emeralds. Dorothy had only one other dress, but that happened to be clean and was hanging on a peg beside her bed. It was gingham with checks of white and blue, and although the blue was somewhat faded with many washings, it was still a pretty frock. The girl washed herself carefully, dressed herself in a clean gingham, and tied her pink sunbonnet on her head. She took...
So now she is going to be wearing a checkered blue and white dress. Okay, so she's about to be on her path to godhood, and now she's going to be wearing a blue and white dress. So let's see. Blue. And it's interesting how many I'm going to say it's just interesting how many things are related to Egypt as Catholic as well. It's just very interesting. So blue was the color of the heavens. Oh, cheese, man. Cheese. This is crazy. Okay, it was the color of the heavens as well as the color of water, the yearly moon. Okay, although ancient Egyptians favored semi-precious stone, Blue was used for the hair of the gods and for the face god. Okay, but let's, maybe I should just look up blue because we know that white represents purity, but anything that says let's start at the beginning, it's going to be a paragraph. And we ain't got time to be reading all that right now. Okay. Ancient blue, the world's oldest pigment. Okay. Let's look up blue meaning. Or I'll just go to blue is the color of the heavens. Okay, so let's go to Catholic. Blue signifies stability, trust, tranquility, and purity. So she now that she passed and she saved the Munchkins, okay, and she's been deified, now she's wearing, and you're gonna see like white is the color of sorceress in the Wizard of Oz, but in the Land of Oz rather. But she, let's just keep going. Oh, wait. Before we keep going, I want to, what is Oz? What does Oz mean? Is an ounce, is a written abbreviation for an ounce. Oz meaning, let's see, Catholic. It might have a Catholic meaning. Or Hebrew meaning. Oh, okay, Oz is might, strength, material, or physical. So it's the land of might, the land of measurement. That's interesting.
A little basket and filled it with bread from the cupboard, laying a white cloth over the top. Then she looked down at her feet and noticed how old and worn her shoes were. They surely will never do for a long journey, Toto, she said. And Toto looked up into her face with his little black eyes and wagged his tail to show he knew what she meant. At that moment, Dorothy saw lying on the table the silver shoes that had belonged to the Witch of the East. I wonder if they will fit me, she said to Toto. They would be just the thing to take a long walk in, for they could not wear out. She took off her old leather shoes and tried on the silver ones, which fitted her as well as if they had been made for her. Finally, she picked up her basket. Come along, Toto, she said. We will go to the Emerald City and ask the Great Oz how to get back to Kansas again. She closed the door, locked it, and put the key carefully in the pocket of her dress. And so, with Toto trotting along soberly behind her, she started on her journey. There were several roads nearby, but it did not take her long to find the one paved with yellow bricks. Within a short time, she was walking briskly toward the Emerald City, her silver shoes tinkling merrily on the hard yellow road bed. The sun shone, the birds sang sweetly, and suddenly whisked away from her own country and sat down in the midst of a strange land. She was surprised, as she walked along, to see how pretty the country was about her. There were neat fences at the sides of the road, painted a dainty blue color, and beyond them were fields of grain and vegetables in abundance. Evidently, the Munchkins were good farmers and able to raise large crops. Once in a while, she would pass a house, and the people came out to look at her and bow low as she went by, for everyone knew she had been the means of destroying the Wicked Witch and setting them free from bondage.
See, they have deified her. She's going to be like in 100 years from that day. What are they going to say about Dorothy? Not that she was whisked away in a chaotic storm that and her house fell on this witch. What myth will they have created? They have deified her.
The houses of the Munchkins were odd-looking dwellings, for each was round with a big dome for a roof. All were painted blue, for in this country of the East, blue was the favorite color. Toward evening, when Dorothy was tired with her long walk and began to wonder where she might pass the night, she came to a house rather larger than the rest. On the green lawn before it, many men and women were dancing. 5 little fiddlers played as loudly as possible, and the people were laughing and singing, while a big table nearby was loaded with delicious fruits and nuts, pies and cakes, and many other good things to eat. The people greeted Dorothy kindly and invited her to supper and to pass the night with them, for this was the home of one of the richest munchkins in the land, and his friends were gathered with him to celebrate their freedom from the bondage of the Wicked Witch. Dorothy ate a hearty supper and was waited upon by the rich munchkin himself, whose name was Buck. Then she sat upon a settee and watched the people dance. When Buck saw her silver shoes, he said, "You must be a great sorceress."
Bach, B-O-Q. Not even a U. What does that mean? B-O-Q. Bank of Queensland. Okay, but what is meaning? Bill of quantities is one systematic ways applied in the construction industry, which is primary function is to record items of works for tendering purposes to create fair agreement among parties involved with contractual purposes. Let's see if there's a Catholic meaning. I mean, they might have one. Okay, I don't see one. Oh, wait. Man, I'm not on my laptop, so I can't. Let me see. Let's see if we can just like skim through and find the word Bach. Okay, Bach. Remember, why is it saying that? It's not saying like, well, it's not what I'm looking for. Building old school churches? Okay, let's see if there's a Egyptian meaning. Bill of quantities. Interesting. Okay, let's keep going. DJ, run it back. Because he's gonna tell her why certain things like why she's considered a sorceress there. He's gonna tell her that. You know what I mean? He's gonna say, oh, because this and this and that. So he's like a bill of records. Like he just knows certain things because no one else told her.
Why? Asked the girl. Because you wear silver shoes and have killed the Wicked Witch. Besides, you have white in your frock, and only witches and sorceresses wear white. My dress is blue and white checked, said Dorothy, smoothing out the wrinkles in it. It is kind of you to wear that, said Buck. Blue is the color of the munchkins, and white is the witch color, so we know you are a friendly witch. Dorothy did not know what to say to this, for all the people seemed to think her a witch, and she knew very well she was only an ordinary little girl who had come by the chance of a cyclone into a strange land. When she had tired watching the dancing, Buck led her into the house where he gave her a room with a pretty bed in it. The sheets were made of blue cloth, and Dorothy slept soundly in them till morning, with Toto curled up on the blue rug beside her. She ate a hearty breakfast and watched a wee munchkin baby who played with Toto and pulled his tail and crowed and laughed in a way that greatly amused Dorothy. Toto was a fine curiosity to all the people, for they had never seen a dog before. How far is it to the Emerald City? The girl asked. I do not know, answered Buck gravely, for I have never been there. It is better for people to keep away from Oz unless they have business with him. But it is a long way to the Emerald City, and it will take you many days. The country here is rich and pleasant, but you must pass through rough and dangerous places before you reach the end of your journey. This worried Dorothy a little, but she knew that only the great Oz could help her get to Kansas again, so she bravely resolved not to turn back. She bade her friends goodbye and again started along the road of yellow brick. When she had gone several miles, she thought she would stop to rest, and so climbed to the top of the fence beside the road and sat down. There was a great cornfield beyond the fence, and not far away she saw a scarecrow placed high on a pole to keep the birds from the ripe corn. Dorothy leaned her chin upon her hand and gazed thoughtfully at the scarecrow. Its head was a small sack stuffed with straw, with eyes, nose, and mouth painted on it to represent a face. An old pointed blue hat that had belonged to some munchkin was perched on his head, and the rest of the figure was a blue suit of clothes, worn and faded, which had also been stuffed with straw. On the feet were some old boots with blue tops, such as every man wore in this country, and the figure was raised above the stalks of corn by means of the pole stuck up its back. While Dorothy was looking earnestly into the queer painted face of the scarecrow, she was surprised to see one of the eyes slowly wink at her. She thought she must have been mistaken at first, for none of the scarecrows in Kansas ever winked, but presently the figure nodded its head to her in a friendly way. Then she climbed down from the fence and walked up to it, while Toto ran around the pole and barked. Good day, said the scarecrow in a rather husky voice. Did you speak? Asked the girl in wonder. Certainly, answered the scarecrow. How do you do? I'm pretty well, thank you, replied Dorothy politely. How do you do? I'm not feeling well, said the Scarecrow with a smile, for it is very tedious being perched up here night and day to scare away crows. Can't you get down? Asked Dorothy. No, for this pole is stuck up my back. If you will please take away the pole, I shall be greatly obliged to you. Dorothy reached up both arms and lifted the figure off the pole, for being stuffed with straw, it was quite light. Thank you very much, said the Scarecrow when he had been set down on the ground. I feel like a new man. Dorothy was puzzled at this, for it sounded queer to hear a stuffed man speak and to see him bow and walk along beside her. Who are you? Asked the Scarecrow when he had stretched himself and yawned. And where are you going? My name is Dorothy, said the girl, and I am going to the Emerald City to ask the Great Oz to send me back to Kansas. Where is the Emerald City? He inquired. And who is Oz? Why, don't you know? She returned in surprise. No, indeed. I don't know anything. You see, I am stuffed, so I have no brains at all, he answered sadly. Oh, said Dorothy, I'm awfully sorry for you. Do you think, he asked, if I go to the Emerald City with you, that Oz would give me some brains? I cannot tell, she returned, but you may come with me if you like. If Oz will not give you any brains, you will be no worse off than you are now.
That's true.
That is true, said the Scarecrow. You see, he continued confidentially, I don't mind my legs and arms and body being stuffed because I cannot get hurt. If anyone treads on my toes or sticks a pin into me, it doesn't matter, for I can't feel it. But I do not want people to call me a fool. And if my head stays stuffed with straw instead of with brains, as yours is, how am I ever to know anything? I understand how you feel, said the little girl, who was truly sorry for him. If you will come with me, I'll ask Oz to do all he can for you. Thank you, he answered gratefully. They walked back to the road. Dorothy helped him over the fence, and they started along the path of yellow brick for the Emerald City. Toto did not like this addition to the party at first. He smelled around the stuffed man as if he suspected there might be a nest of rats in the straw, and he often growled in an unfriendly way at the Scarecrow. Don't mind Toto, said Dorothy to her new friend. He never bites. Oh, I'm not afraid, replied the Scarecrow. He can't hurt the straw. Do let me carry that basket for you. I shall not mind it, for I can't get tired. I'll tell you a secret, he continued as he walked along. There is only one thing in the world I am afraid of. What is that? Asked Dorothy. The Munchkin farmer who made you? No, answered the Scarecrow. It is a lighted match.
Okay, so we're gonna stop there with the book because yeah, but I do want to learn what straw means. Oh, bricks without straw is a phase that refers to a task which must be undertaken without appropriate resources. Bricks without straw. What does carrying a straw to Egypt mean? A pointless activity. Biblical meaning of straws, material used in order to make bricks. So the Scarecrow is what's needed in order to make bricks. And they are walking or journeying on the yellow brick road. So in order for Dorothy to continue, she has acquired what is needed to make brick. And if the yellow brick road is the journey towards godhood, then one could say that by acquiring the straw element of what's required to make brick, she is now one step closer to godhood. And in the next chapter, I really like how they speak on not having a brain and not thinking, rather just a deep knowing. So there's some interesting ways that they depict that, and I think it's definitely worth diving into. But I want to see, what does straw mean to Catholics? A piece of straw is placed in the manger for each kind, deed, or act of service performed. What is the tradition of straw manger? The days leading to Christmas. In the days leading to Christmas, families can place a piece of straw in the manger each time they perform. Well, why place straw in the manger? Okay, this is the tradition of making baby Jesus's bed soft. Interesting. The straws reflect extra spiritual efforts during Advent. Let's think. No, let's. There we have that. I definitely. This is so related to the ISIS thesis. It's insane because I literally started reading that last night, and then I started reading this last night too. No, I think I started reading the ISIS thesis 2 days ago, but it seems to be quite similar. So I shall be reading the next chapter today. The dead travel. Is there any scientific evidence for the Egyptian path to eternity? The Wizard of Oz, to me, seems like it's talking about the Egyptian path to eternity. And we have to think about, why is everything so fixated on this? Because even Hunger Games, it's like, why there's a reason for it. So let's quickly look up what scarecrow is. In Catholicism, scarecrows. Come on, load. Okay. Is this his own personal account? I don't. Okay, let's see. And according to Quora, monstrous emotions and thoughts, which often provoke feeling or fear or dread. What does the Bible say about scarecrows? Their idols are like scarecrows in a cucumber field, and they can't speak. They have to be carried, for they cannot walk. Do not be afraid of them, for they can do no evil. Why are scarecrows on crosses? I didn't even realize that there was. Oh, yeah, they are on crosses. Some all, such as, suggest that scarecrow, in addition to mirroring placed on the cross, may trespassing symbol. Are scarecrows pagan? Scarecrows, because he said he feared, the only thing he feared was a lighted match. And I thought it was like, oh, because it's gonna go up in flames. But scarecrows were burnt as sacrifices. What? During pagan ceremonies to bring good harvest. When Christianity arrived, the practice, like so many old rituals, was stamped out. Oh, okay. So that's a lot to process. So Dorothy is now walking with something that used to be sacrificed. Okay. Then, and it is filled with what is needed to create the pathway for the yellow brick road. So she has now found, and after she freed the munchkins, when she passed and landed on the witch, she then found and saved what is needed to create this God experience. Wow. Interesting. Okay, let's look up scarecrow in Egypt right quick. Early Egyptians used human scarecrows to protect their wheat field from flocks of quails. They were the first group in recorded history to use scarecrows. This is not a coincidence, okay? This is not a coincidence. Oh my gosh, what the entire F? I'm like super, super early on my journey. And so this is some crazy stuff. So we're going to get, next time, we're going to get more into the history of scarecrows because I really want to see what this is, the history of scarecrows. And then we'll continue into the book to really, really get a full understanding of why the scarecrow is so important to this story and why she found the scarecrow first. So let's stop sharing my screen. I'll go back. Thank you. This is freaking fascinating. So I'll see you guys next time when we continue to decode this 14 book series.